I think mother role has really taken over in the last few months because performer and teacher have almost completely faded to the background. I think dancer has been still alive because I do still like to use my body and like to play and explore and you know uh, also pay attention to my body and nourish it and stuff like that. I think some ideas are slowly kind of slowly taking shape, um, but no major plans, no kind of making any no making any plans for the future because I think that's so uncertain.
I would assume the dancer never fades away, even though you might be performing other kind of, say, for example, you're doing household chores, and
Yeah.
particularly the kind of uh, uh, the kind of dancer that you have been, and the kind of dance that you have worked on. Uh, Revisiting the idea of body in dance
Yeah.
performance.
Yeah.
That body is always there in whatever you
Exactly.
do.
Exactly. So there's always several aspects of the body also that kind of come into focus or not. Sometimes it is the performative aspect of something, like it. What does my body convey at this point? So supposing you're having a conversation with somebody, you're supposing even if you're on Zoom or one of these Google Meets, like what is my body saying? So there's attention to the kind of performative aspect of the body. Then there's attention to the kind of material aspect of the body of like, okay, something is feeling stiff. I haven't had the space or the time to actually do something big and explosive and high energy. It's been very much kind of low energy and sitting or
Mhm.
small spaces and so on. So there's that kind of material kind of feeling of the body and the
Mhm.
kind of energetic kind of feeling of the body. So there's a lot of attention to different aspects with regard to the body, and I think it's becoming clearer to me that for me the main point of interest is the body. Performance is one modality of expressing what I discover or what I enjoy or what I want to communicate. So performance is one modality of communicating.
Mhm.
So that's not the primary research focus, if you
Mhm.
will. Yeah.
So tell me something more, a little more about when you started your journey as a student. You were
Mm.
studying it with Maya Rao, and then there was, and this is what I have gathered from my homework about you. Your dissatisfaction with yourself as a student, or maybe I'm guessing, correct me if I'm wrong, and then you thought that beyond that formal training with Maya Rao there is more to be explored, and then you start another kind of journey. Could you please give us little glimpse of uh, you starting as an explorer of this?
Yeah. Yeah, I think in my early days, like when I was in school and stuff, I I always loved to move and dance, and I think there was definitely an element of showing off or looking good or being pretty and all of these things. That was definitely part of it, and I was good at it. And And so the kind of natural progression was towards dancing as I knew it then. Um, and so I, joined the Natya Institute of Kathak and Choreography, and I joined Maya Didi's daughter's dance company called the Natya STEM Dance Company, which did very much promote that idea of dance, which was a lot of like technical, clarity, purity, and very much kind of focused on the display or the demonstrative, performative aspect of dance. And even actually, to be honest, even when I went to the UK and studied there, although I think they were more kind of in the words that they used, it was much more about, honesty in the body and stuff like that. There was still underlying very much this idea of the body as a tool, or the body as an object, or the body basically as the means to the end that the mind decides.
Hmm.
And I think that was the main kind of friction that I had. And I think in my early days, I didn't really even know how to articulate that, how to begin to kind of understand that. But I think I began to encounter it when my body wouldn't do what my mind wanted, basically. So I think
Wow.
many of us face this, where you have a certain intention, like you want to do something,
Yeah.
but your body is like, no, actually, I don't want to do that. Yeah, and I think then I started to begin to follow what does my body want to do,
Hmm.
and why does it want to do that, and what is it following when it's taking me down a certain path.
Hmm.
Um, and that started becoming far more interesting and exciting and also doable. I didn't feel like I was struggling or fighting or having to conquer something or like fix something. Or and a lot of the discourse around body is about management. We have
Yes.
to manage the body,
Yes.
whether it's from religion, or whether it's from philosophy, or whether
Yes.
it's from medicine, or whether it's even from fashion, or even from fitness. It's about so much about the discourse around the body is having to manage it.
Or
Um,
control it, manage it and
yes,
control it. Yeah.
yes, manage, control, even, referencing Foucault, there's so much about discipline and
Yes.
all of this, and of course, all of that is so internalized as well. That I felt that I think now my work is much more drawn to like removing these filters through which we perceive or experience or allow the body to act.
Hmm.
And yeah, it takes a bit of time, I think, to dismantle all that, kacham gucham in your head to
Yes.
let the body do stuff.
Hmm.
And I think then it becomes a political statement, it becomes a philosophical position, it becomes an aesthetic choice, because then your body doesn't, look like the nice dancer with long hair. And
Hmm.
I often tell the story that when I first cut my hair off,
Hmm.
one of the questions that I was asked was, how are you going to dance? And yeah, I said, well, I haven't cut my leg off, I've only cut my hair. So, um,
Hmm.
yeah.
So this reminds me. I mean, you rightly said there has been a lot of discussion on body mind separation and how mind is eventually far more rational than body itself, and then all kind of interventions in this debate coming from feminist scholars and so on and so forth. It's a long trajectory. I'll not go there. I'll just uh, uh, zero in on a particular idea which emerged from what you said. So what are you seeking for? The independence of body from mind, or is some kind of more harmonious relation between body and mind? I mean, what is the
Yeah, I
yeah?
think I think it's the relationship. What is really the relationship between these two aspects? And I feel like there is something that is different about the two. Somehow I uh, perceive that there are some actions or some energy that is a mental kind of energy, and there is something that is more a physical, visceral, bodily energy or bodily action, bodily motivation. And I think for me, that I'm very interested in the relationship between the two, and I think there is very much definitely a relationship between these aspects. And one of the ways that I have begun to kind of describe part of the relationship, say to my students, is to think of the body and the mind maybe as two sides of a sheet of paper.
Hmm.
So they're inseparable,
Yes,
but they're different.
yes,
So one can't exist without the other. One
yes.
side of the paper cannot exist without the other side. And yet you
Hmm.
can make two separate drawings on both sides.
Hmm.
They're different, but they're fundamentally inseparable.
Yes.
Um, is kind of where I'm at
Yeah.
now in my understanding.
Hmm.
And that kind of then leads to questions of meaning making and
Hmm.
learning to
Hmm.
me. Again, what is the relationship between the body and mind
Hmm.
in the act of meaning making
Hmm.
or learning?
Wonderful, wonderful. So I was thinking, how do what kind of responses you get from your students? Are you still teaching at Christie School, or you've taken a
No,
break?
I don't teach there. Yeah, I don't teach there on a regular basis. I since from 2018 February, that's almost 2.5 years, I haven't been there as a full-time faculty, but
Okay.
I do go in every now and then to do projects and
Hmm.
chunks of work for them.
Hmm. Hmm.
So no, I haven't. I don't have a very like consistent teaching practice at the moment.
Hmm.
Partly also because a lot of my performance work suddenly kind of started taking on a lot more of my time and energy, and I had to be traveling a lot or rehearsing kind of in chunks of time. So yeah, I took a break from active teaching.
But you have a group of performers. What
No.
was that big fat company? Something like
Yeah, so I work with whoever
I say.
needs me or whoever I can find. So I don't have a group that I work with. So I don't have my own company or my own group. And I have different projects with different groups running. For example, the Big Fat Company is one of them.
Hmm.
And it was actually started by somebody else called Anuradha, and she and her kind of the people invited me to direct their play. So
Hmm.
I've my involvement with them is only to direct that first play.
What was that
There's
play called?
another, sorry,
What was that play called?
it's called Head to Head,
Okay.
like that.
Huh.
Head to head, yeah. Um, and the kind of subtitle is The Big Fat Company Plays with Hayavadana. Hayavadana is Girish Karnad's very famous play
Yeah.
about
Hmm.
duality, body, mind, identity, and so on. So we've used sections of Girish Karnad's play in Kannada in the original to
Hmm.
raise the questions, to pose the questions, and then we address the questions through other theatrical devices.
Wonderful,
Yeah.
wonderful. So, what was your impression of Karnad's Hayavadan? What kind of discourse? I mean, how did that discourse in Hayavadan benefit your approach?
Well, I think he raises a lot of really pertinent and interesting questions in that play because basically those two heads get switched.
Yes,
Uh,
yes.
of There is a caste angle to it, but we didn't kind of take on that aspect. We were mainly focusing on how does identity get shaped,
Hmm.
and I think uh, in Hayavadana, the kind of resolution is that identity gets shaped by the head, the mind. So mm, the body kind of takes the shape that the mind chooses.
Hmm.
And I think the big fat company would disagree. Yeah. They would, of course, like to have slender, slim, fashionable, highly desirable,
Right.
socially acceptable bodies, but they don't.
Yeah.
So, although in their mind they would very much like that,
Hmm.
for whatever reason, that's not happening. So is there a way of then uh, being okay with the body that you have, or becoming friends with the body that you have, particularly as an actor or a performer, to
Hmm.
be able to inhabit your body with confidence and strength and clarity of intention
Hmm.
is a good thing. So if you don't like your body, or if you are afraid of your body, or you're ashamed of your body, then you can't actually be the strongest performer that
Hmm.
you possibly can. I think uh, it takes an acceptance, and not just acceptance. Acceptance is almost too mild. It takes a respect for the body to be a good
Yes.
performer. Yeah.
Yes. A little more time I would like to spend on this. I mean, this is very interesting part. Uh, um, um, Girish Karnad himself, such a genius. We all know he always encouraged critical discussion on his works. Do you at any point of time in your engagement with Hayavadana, you felt anywhere that in ultimate analysis, Karnad gave us a fairly Brahminical kind of discourse where head is far more important than the body. Body
Yeah.
pollutes, and therefore body has to be uh, regulated by a very efficient, very powerful, actually, well encultured head. So, did you get that kind of critical? How did you deal with that sense?
Um, so when we first began to work with Hayavadana, we wrote to Girish Karnad, and we sought his permission. And we also said that we're going to use it as a kind of starting point and, work with the text and so on. And he was very generous with his
Yeah,
permission, his
yeah.
blessings, his willingness to let us use his work as we would. When we opened the play, we invited him to come and watch, and unfortunately, because of his health, he couldn't come. But his wife
Hmm.
did come, Saras Karnad, and
Okay.
she later sent me a message saying that it was an amazing interpretation, and it was really strong and powerful, and she was really full of positive
Wonderful,
praise for the
wonderful.
way we had used the play. However, there were other people who were much more kind of maybe traditional in their attachment to Karnad, maybe who did take offense. Yeah. So, for example, we have this one scene in that play where the five actors eat a whole cake. It's one of the
Hmm.
most kind of controversial scenes in the play. There is no narrative, there is
Hmm.
no script, there is no character.
Hmm.
So it's just these five rather fat actors
Hmm.
eating this whole cake.
Hmm.
And firstly, eating on stage within the kind of Natya Shastra and all is
Yes.
considered a complete no-no. Like you're not meant to eat on stage.
Taboo,
Um,
taboo. Yes.
yeah, very taboo. So then there is also this aspect of eating and fatness that is a very touchy and taboo kind of subject. So we wanted to bring that into, onto the stage, and we had the scene where the actor, so sometimes that scene goes on for like 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 9 minutes, and it's quite an uncomfortable scene because at the beginning, nobody really knows, or the audience doesn't know what's going on or what they're supposed to be doing. What is my role in this? Should I watch it? Should I not? Is it supposed to be funny? Is it not? And so on. So it's a bit of a tough scene to watch initially.
Hmm.
Uh, and for that, for example, we got a lot of criticism. Like, how can you put that scene along with, Hayavadana, which is such a classic.
Hmm.
Um,
Yes.
yeah, so
When when was it performed first? Head to
it
head. When
was
was it performed first?
it was first performed in March of 2018,
Okay.
2.5 years ago, in a very kind of, we opened it in a very conservative part of Bangalore also, which is like in
Oh.
Baswangudi, in a quite a
Hmm.
conservative neighborhood, Um, yeah, so it was the first, I think, response was quite, people were a bit not very happy with it, but but then we, for example, we also took it to the Nepal International Theatre Festival and performed
Hmm.
in Kathmandu,
Hmm.
where it was received completely differently. I think there wasn't so much,
Hmm.
I don't know, maybe there wasn't so much attachment to what it used to be. I don't know, but it was
Hmm.
received very well. Yeah.
Or there, or there were not too many blind worshippers of Girish Karnad over there.
Yeah, I think, yeah, yeah,
There's no doubt Girish Karnad's plays, most of his works are powerful. I mean, they're epic in modern theater and they would always have relevance. But an intervention like yours, head to head, is equally important. Someone like Girish Karnad himself would encourage such. Uh,
absolutely. And he did. He was just unable to make it, unfortunately, to watch the play, but he
right.
was very supportive, and he always responded to our emails with a lot of, positive energy.
Hmm.
Yeah. It never once felt like somehow he wasn't happy with what we were doing. Not at all.
Yeah. So from here, I want to take you to uh, reflect a little more on the larger theatre scene in India. Uh, to begin with, in Bangalore, we have heard all kind of great things about theatre scene in Bangalore, but we all know that the drums from distance always sound nice. When we get closer, we get to see a lot of those details, which will give us more complicated story. And similar situation we find elsewhere in India too. I mean, be it Calcutta or Delhi. Delhi is actually far more sickening than uh, Delhi is sickening in general, be it in academics or in theater or in any field. Delhi is a
Or
strange
even
place.
just on the street.
Yeah, the street. Just onlookers will give you that sense that you can fall sick any moment. Right? So, what did you think of the larger theater scene? Is it welcoming? Does it allow experimentations, or it's now entirely taken over by corporate bodies? However, there are not too many corporate bodies also interested in theater, but there are a couple of them, some of them, who have instituted awards for best performance, excellence award, and many of the actors of my generation I've heard they work to achieve those awards. I mean, they really consider those awards very important. Paradoxically enough, they might be trained in some of those very alternative kind of theater school, and yet they would look forward to those sponsorship or awards. So, how do you reflect on this?
I think I wonder whether I'm too harsh in saying that institutions generally have not been very. I haven't had a lot of support from institutions in general. Even sometimes when I seek Support. My projects are never funded, and yeah, they're just not very popular. I also feel like I'm on the fringes of all of these things. I don't really count as a full-fledged dancer, I think, in Bangalore. Like, I don't fit into that group or what I perceive as that group. Of course, I have lots of friends, individual friends who are dancers, but I don't really think of myself as belonging to that group in Bangalore. Similarly, I don't think of myself as belonging to the theater group, like the group of theater practitioners in Bangalore. I always feel a bit on the outside of these things. And I remember when I was much younger, I think around 23 or something, and dancing a lot at that time and doing a lot of these kind of corporate shows and so on, thinking to myself that I will not depend on performance for my livelihood, for my income. And I think that's given me a lot of freedom to choose to not perform, or to make the kind of work that I want to make. Yeah, and I feel like that's really actually been a good decision for me, not to seek institutional support or financial support, or even support for especially money. I think money always makes things a bit dubious and sticky. And I am, of course, in a position where I have other ways of supporting myself. So I don't depend primarily on my art practice, and that's partly a choice not to depend on my art practice for an income. So, for example, like last year, I made an experimental film. This year, I have made a set of voice recordings that work with the body, and I don't need money for this. I don't need to be paid. I don't, and therefore, I don't need to get that award so that I can get my next gig, so that I can get the next funding application. So I feel like these are not the steps or markers or things that I need to support my work. So yeah, so I don't actually need an award. So that makes things a lot easier.
Yeah, that freedom allows you to do all kind of experimental work that you would like to do.
Yeah, which
And
also, and truly like an experiment, some things are complete, non-starters. Some things turn out to be big flops, or like nothing really, there's no juice in it. There's nothing really coming out of it. And that's what I mean when I say a flop, not that it wasn't appreciated or people didn't like it or nobody came or I didn't make money, or not that, but more like it's not giving me something back in a way. Another example is in 2016, a group of 7 women, one of whom was me, made this play called Positively Shameless. And it was 5 women who had all experienced child sexual abuse, but were now adults. My co-director is a drama therapist and also a very good friend of mine. So we worked together both therapeutically as well as artistically. So it was both a therapeutic journey as well as an artistic journey. And again, when we applied for funding for that, we didn't get any. We were told that it's not going to work, this thing won't happen, you'll be compromising the artistic integrity of the play if you're working with non-trained actors, and if it's also like, is it therapy or is it art? Like, please tell us. And I think our point was, that if it's good therapy, it can also be good art. And if it's good art, it can also be good therapy. We don't have to make a choice. It's not
Mm.
applied art versus pure art.
Right.
And our whole like endeavor was to dispute that dichotomy. And as it happened, that play in many standard modes of what you might count as success
Mm.
was successful. In fact, I would say continues to be successful. We were supposed to be artists in residence at New York University earlier this year, which of course we couldn't do because of
And
Corona and COVID and so on. But we were invited
mm.
to perform in New York, and on the way we were going to perform in an international festival in Rotterdam. Um,
Mm.
yeah, and so a play that was made in 2016 was still, relevant and being kind of invited
Mm.
to be performed uh, in different parts. So I feel like in terms of my art practice, I think I should just do what I think I want to be doing in
Right.
whatever way, like, and at whatever pace. Sometimes there's a lot going on, sometimes there's nothing going on.
Mm.
And so there's no kind of pressure to keep it up or to keep producing, or now that it's virtual, make a play for the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No pressure. So looks like positively shameless gave you very positive criteria. And actually, it is very positive criteria. In the time of pandemic, we realize that we need to have art forms which can help us understand our bodies better
Mm.
and how to be mindful about our body. I mean, everybody gets all those nuggets of wisdom on WhatsApp and whatnot, but nobody
Mm.
is really able to understand the relation of body, mind, and not only body and mind, also body and surrounding, body and
Yeah.
environment, body and the street, body
Yeah.
and the sound that we hear. I mean, so there's a great deal of possibilities when one is trying to develop some kind of parameter in which relates body and art form. Would you be interested in developing something? Because I mean, not for necessarily not for any buyer or taker, but for the sake of your own artistic pleasure, would you be interested in developing something which will have a therapeutic value, particularly which can
Yeah.
address the anxiety that we have about our bodies these days during pandemic and even afterwards there will be this
Hmm.
particular anxiety.
So I have to say at the beginning that I'm not a therapist.
Mm.
I think my work can be therapeutic. And I think the distinction there is that I cannot undertake to address or help solve a specific or particular personal problem or issue. What
Mm.
I can do is offer spaces, opportunities, ideas, tools, methodologies to help integrate emotions, mental, where you are mentally, physically, and so on. And in fact, just I think not like a week ago, I had the opportunity to publish a set of 3 voice recordings. I'll send you the link on WhatsApp. You can
Sure.
see what you think. I sent it
Sure.
to Priya, in fact.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. They're 10-minute voice recordings, and they are, I'm not even sure what to call them, but they're kind of like guided somatic practice.
Oh
So they're
wow.
non-form based. So it's not like yoga, it's not kathak, it's not exercise.
Hmm.
It's just a way of tuning into your body
Hmm.
and through attention and movement. Um, and I've kind of, after it kind of went into the public domain, I had shared it with a lot of people, and many responses have come back about how how it's really helped kind of calming or reconnecting with the body and so on. I'd actually initially made it for a friend who, at the height of this kind of migrant labor crisis, was doing a lot of work
I
with
see.
going out and giving food and stuff like that. And she was
Mm,
feeling a lot of fatigue and disconnect with her body. And
mm,
I was wondering how I could support her, how I could help her. And I made these recordings for her. And
mm.
she found them really helpful. And then I started sharing them with a few other friends. And then I kind of put them out, for kind of public use, and I call them somatic offerings. So again, there's no like money or nothing like that, but yeah, I'll send you the link. You can see
Sure,
what
please do
you
that.
think. Mm.
So no, I was not asking you as a therapist to offer anything. As an artist, you can offer a lot.
Yes.
I mean, the
Yeah.
crisis today is that our cultural arrangement, which might have had some utility, which may have helped us in coping
Mm.
with this kind of situation, doesn't work anymore, or it has become
No.
illegitimate, or it is out of gear. And therefore, novel cultural formats are yet to emerge, which can
Mm.
help us deal with ourselves in this kind of very difficult situation. So, therefore, I suppose there is imperative for all the artists, most of the artists, to come up with their own, contributions. Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, if we really had a discerning state or government, or really forget about state and government, if we really had meaningful institutions around us, be it universities or art institutions, all those institutions should have worked toward it, taking artists on board and creating all these novel forms, cultural forms, which can
Mm.
help individuals in dealing with this the challenge that we are facing today. Instead of just reducing it into a biological or medical challenge, one
Yeah.
has to take it up at cultural level, and that is not happening, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, very true. And I feel like what I notice is that many people, including myself, are kind of encountering a different sense of self. The self that doesn't have to get ready in the morning and get out to work. Like, who is this person? Who
Yeah.
am I if I'm not at my desk or in my classroom? Or so, who is this person? And I think we're all kind of beginning to kind of encounter this new self. And also, and I feel like that's partly why there is so much of a impetus to post on social media, because you need people to tell you who you are.
Yes.
And when you're at home, you only have maybe your kids or your partner or your neighbor telling you who you are.
Hmm.
And otherwise, like when you're in a class, you get information about who you are from your students, what kind of teacher you are,
Right.
whatever. As you are sitting waiting for a bus, you get information about what kind of person you are by the way people uh, respond to you.
Yes.
uh, but we don't have this information now because
Hmm.
we're not inhabiting those spaces anymore. So
Hmm.
we're wondering who we are. No, we're like, who is this person? Like, who am I if I'm just sitting? Am I even real? Like, do I need to post on Facebook to kind of uh, to know that yeah, I actually do exist, and this is who I am.
I suppose many of you, I mean, the artists of various kinds, performing with various kind of means, be it visual art or photography, etc., dance, theater. Many of you should join social sciences and humanities, because the typical professional social scientists have forgotten this very important question. They don't ask
Yeah.
these questions to, I mean, they don't even ask themselves. Forget about playing with this question and offering something different to
Absolutely.
the world.
And actually so many academics or thinkers or people who have contributed a lot to this discourse are from the social sciences, like Judith Butler or Foucault,
Yes.
or
Hmm.
this guy who talks about habitus. What is his name?
Bourdieu, Pierre
Yeah,
Bourdieu.
that's the guy. That's the guy. So
Bourdieu.
there is a lot of course, within philosophy as well. There's a lot of kind of discourse on what is the role of the body in creating. And I feel like performance uses the modality of the body to communicate the knowledge of the body. So you're not writing a paper
Hmm.
or a book about what you understand
Hmm.
through the body. You are using the body itself to communicate what you understand through the body. So that's where performance fits into my understanding of my work. Although I do write about it as
Right.
well, but
Yes. Yeah, we're beginning to see. I mean, it's been now here around for a while, for a few years, that there is a lot of interest, scholarly interest on the idea of body in performances, and particularly body and dance performance. Even from that perspective of therapist, I have seen some of the papers coming up. So, should we look forward to some kind of writing from you on? I mean, offering your own experience as some kind of thesis?
Uh, yeah, I don't know. I still feel like, okay, I'm gonna wait to write, something big when I'm old and I can't do anything else. And that's one thought. But the other way of thinking for me now is that actually writing helps me reflect upon my own practice. It helps me
Right.
look at it from a different vantage point. Otherwise the practice, I feel so much like I get ideas, I'm able to think, I'm able to make when I'm in a studio and I'm actually working with people. But I think writing gives me just another kind of entry point or a different perspective on what I'm doing. So yeah, I have been doing a bit of writing this year, but let's see what happens.
Thanks a lot. Wonderful talking to you.
Yes, you too.